In business today, three things to know. First, the job numbers are out, and they look pretty good. But are too many economists wearing rose-colored glasses? We'll dig through the numbers for a clearer picture. Then, a little bit of Putin on the side. Despite the official G7 snub, guess who is chatting with the Russian president? That would be everybody, including President Obama. And the celebrity pooch in the corner office, the dog trainer to the stars. Arisexchange for Friday starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. The top headline from Friday's jobs report that the U.S. has recouped all of the jobs lost in the recession dating back to January 2008. 217,000 jobs were created in May, according to the Labor Department, placing the nation on one of the best four-month stretches in 15 years. The unemployment rate stood still at 6.3%. The U.S. has added at least 200,000 jobs in every month since February. But wage growth remains sluggish and jobs for young people still elusive. In a moment, Andrew Schiff will help us go through the report. But first, Wall Street found enough reason to keep the party going today, as it has all week. Another record. Let's take a look at the final numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 88.17 to 16,924. The S&P 500 up 9 to 1949, excuse me, too many zeros there in my head. Up 25 points for the NASDAQ to 4321. Taking a look at some of the stocks we're watching today, it was all stars, literally, at Walmart's shareholders meeting in Arkansas. Farrow, Robin Thicke, Sarah McLachlan, and Harry Connick Jr. were among the many celebs mingling with shareholders at the 4-hour meeting. How many of them do you actually think shop at Walmart? Come on, down 11 cents to 77.21. Twitter reportedly in talks to buy music streaming service SoundCloud. Analysts say the Apple Beats deal created heightened interest in music streaming. Twitter closing down 56 cents. And shares of rental car company Hertz plummeted after the company said it would restate results from 2011 to 2013 to fix accounting errors. Hertz was scheduled to release its results on May 7th, but delayed the announcement. Hertz, as they say, needs to try a little harder, down $2.76. Commodities, gold down 20 cents, oil up 29 cents to 102.77. Let's talk now about the jobs and other news of the day with Andrew Schiff from Euro Pacific Capital. Andrew, welcome back to Arisexchange as always.
Nice to be here, Andrew.
Okay, so the economists out there, most of the reports saying this jobs number is quite encouraging. Your take?
Well, it was really right. It was not an impressive number. It pretty much hit expectations. But if you look at the numbers, you know, again, the jobs created were mostly in the low end of the spectrum, the retail, the service sector jobs. There was a loss in construction jobs, or actually a slowdown in how many construction workers were hiring, which is indicative of a slowing housing market. Not a lot of high-paying jobs there. So, yeah, they're making a big deal that we've kind of replaced all the jobs that were lost since the beginning of the Great Recession.
6 years ago, I might add.
6 years ago. And the thing that's
terrible recovery, isn't it?
What no one talks about is that the United States is 10 million people larger than it was. Now, the labor participation rate, which is at the lowest it's been since the late 70s, is still around 62%. So,
have we seen some improvement there?
No, none at all.
So people remain discouraged, basically.
Yeah, well, they can't. People fall out of the workforce. They realize it's not worth getting a job, or the kind of bad job they can get. It's better to stay home. You see a lot of people do take these marginal jobs, which is why you're seeing such agitation around the country about minimum wage, because more and more people are working for minimum wage jobs. But if you've got a 62% labor participation rate and you've got 10 million new people.
What are the other 38% doing? They can't.
Well, a lot of people don't have jobs. I mean, you do have some single-family households. You do have, some people don't need to work. But of those 10 million new people, we're totally factoring those out. That would be 6 million new workers that should have had jobs that don't. So it's a straw man statistic, and it disappoints me that nobody actually calls anybody on it. But it's not a real recovery. I mean, especially given the fact that everyone said that the first quarter was in the tank because of the weather.
Well, and that's what people have said. And now we're in the second quarter.
Right. So where's the recovery?
And
we just did a research on this, and the paper's up on our website, Euro Pacific Capital. We went back and looked at some of the bad first quarter, the bad winners of the past 40 years. And yeah, there was a significant 2% slowdown in GDP when the winter was really heavy. But there was always a big bounce back in the second quarter, and we're not seeing that.
How do we connect, though, what consumer confidence being up, with the lack of wage growth, which we're also seeing in these job numbers, because eventually, if you don't have wage growth, you're not going to continue to get to see people spending more money.
Well, right. Well, first of all, spending doesn't create growth, but we are kind of in a recession right now. It's being masked by the fact that we have all this monetary stimulus, and we're creating asset bubbles in the stock market, record high today. Bond prices are still too high. Real estate prices, as far as I'm concerned, are still too high. So we're creating these asset bubbles, but it's not doing anything for the real economy. So you have a limited amount of demand in the economy, and there's not a lot of pricing power that labor has. Now, the answer isn't just to raise wages across the board by increasing the minimum wage, because that just doesn't understand take into effect the economic reality on the ground.
Sure.
And you can't create growth by raising prices, which is what we're trying to do.
Well, and also you think that the Fed says there's no inflation, or very little inflation. You think that there's much more inflation out there in the economy.
Well, sure. Even according to the Fed's own statistics, they're at 1.95%. They're always warning us about lowflation or disinflation, and they're at their 2% target. And since when did 2% become the ideal rate of inflation? I don't know, but the producer price index came out recently. It was a very, very hot number. Right. There's plenty of reason to believe that 1.95 is going to go over 2 in the next couple of months, and the Fed really can't do anything about it. So they have to keep on saying there's no inflation, even if there is.
When the jobs numbers come out, what number do you want to look at to suggest that we're getting to the point where you're saying there's real substantial growth here?
Well, I mean, you got to see. I mean, remember way back in the 2008s and 7s, we'd see job growth in the 300,000, 350. I mean,
almost every month.
Almost every month. You got to look at Australia. Australia had a jobs report recently that, if equated to population for the United States, this is like 2 months ago, it would have been like 900,000 jobs if you could adjust it for population. We'd like to just see half of that, just for 1 month.
And Australia, I should say, has been cutting back on some taxes and regulations. So maybe there's a connection there.
They're doing great in Australia, actually.
All right, I want to ask you about this high-frequency trading, something that most people don't recognize about, but there's a book out, of course.
Michael Lewis.
That's right, Michael Lewis's book. What is, if you could tell us in a high-speed way, what high-speed trading is and why it's important that the SEC did something
It's just
today?
kind of an arms race in the financial industry. Basically, you have these different computers trying to get better execution and shave, 1,000th of a cent off of each transaction that they're making, and you have all these big different banks with all these huge computers really trying to get that little spread, that exploit 10 seconds worth of information to make a little bit of extra profit. Personally, I don't see it as something that small investors or even medium-sized investors have anything to worry about. If a bank is going to shave a little bit of, capture a very small amount, it's not going to affect the overall.
Is it therefore the other traders who don't have access to this that are complaining?
Yeah, that's who really suffers, is the other traders. It's not something that the small trader who can't afford that kind of technology. The long-term investor, it's a non-issue.
Oh, we have to wrap up. But do we need regulations, which the SEC says it's probably going to impose here?
I hate regulation. I've never thought,
That's a loaded question. I knew where you were going.
So whatever they're aiming at, they're not going to hit. So they're going to hit something else. That's what happens with regulation. They always hit an innocent bystander.
Okay. Andrew Schiff, thank you so much.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good weekend. Coming up, look who's talking Vladimir Putin and President Obama, what the two may have chatted about, and world mess at the World Cup. Is Brazil ready? You're watching Arisexchange.
If I was building my own news network, I think I'd want broad, in-depth knowledge of important issues throughout the world.
I would want to recruit a fairly diverse staff that had different life experiences before they came to news.
We want to see how we can help ourselves and help benefit other people, and not just see what's up with the celebrities and where they're going and traveling and buying this and buying that.
If I were to build my own news network, it would certainly have to reflect a diversity of culture, because that's the global situation, that's the global reality.
I would probably bring a lot of personal stories, really personal stories from the leaders of all countries.
If I was to build my own news network, I would just have people from all over who are very connected and diverse.
Vice News, every culture, every angle.
During D-Day commemorations, President Obama held an impromptu 15-minute chat with Russian President Putin. Despite being excluded from the G7, several leaders have been holding side talks with Putin. What was discussed, and does it mean anything? Our D.C. Bureau Chief James Blue is in Washington right now joining us. I'll tell you something. Putin has been probably better fed here because he's been going to all these dinners with the world leaders. Tell me a little bit about this 15-minute meeting with the president.
Well, it was really a meeting after a lunch, and they were able to discuss some substantive items about the Russian invasion and incursion into Crimea. Basically, President Obama telling President Putin that he has to back off and that he needs to give up Crimea and stop antagonizing Ukraine.
Basically, what he took 15 minutes to say, you just said in about 30 seconds.
Well, they were eating, so what can you say?
Who initiated this discussion?
Well, it's very unclear, and it hasn't really been revealed. There was very good sense that they were going to sort of brush up against each other. But what really happened, they just took the opportunity to sort of talk face to face. And the President Obama, coming from Brussels and coming from the G7 statement against Russia, really felt he had the upper hand. And he really wants to sort of get President Putin to deal directly with the newly elected president of Russia, who Putin also met, and try to sort of resolve some of the issues of Russia's incursion in Ukraine and Crimea.
Do you get a sense that Putin is going to recognize the new president of Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, it looks as though Putin may have blinked. And the problem with Russia, you never really can say something's happened until it actually happens on the ground. But certainly, Vladimir Putin came to the D-Day events sort of with his tail between his legs. And I think my sense is things will improve, and the President Obama certainly hopes the resolve of the West will get some type of resolution to get Russia out of Crimea and the Ukraine.
The president not the only one meeting with the Russian president. Of course, Germany's leader, France's leader did as well. Do these meetings enhance the G7 and what it's trying to accomplish, or do you think it undermines the group?
No, it absolutely enhances it. One of the things, it reminds Vladimir Putin what he's missing out on. You remember all those meals. But it also...
the French president, by the way, went to both meals. I don't know if you saw that story.
I did. But what's also very true is that they are singing from the same hymn book. They're singing the same song. And he tried to try to create some friction and some tensions between the Western allies, but I think they're all pretty much on the same plate, and I think he heard that.
Yeah, that's what's probably most impressive here. Is it's one thing for a group to say something as a group, but then individually it resonates more when Putin hears it over and over again, even in these short little Snapchat type of meetings.
Precisely, absolutely, I agree.
And so what is the next step here? Where does the president go from here, and where does the Russian president go?
Well, the president's headed home. Air Force One arrives tonight in Washington. And really the next step, next week, the new president of Ukraine will be inaugurated. And we will see to what extent Russia sort of changes its tune related to Ukraine. Will Russian troops leave Crimea? Who knows? Will they sort of fully withdraw from eastern Ukraine? Who knows? But what is clear, the capital flight and the sanctions have had some impact, forcing Vladimir Putin to come to the table cup in hand.
Okay, James Blue in Washington, D.C. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time now for our business ticker stories making news around the world. Banks are facing record fines as regulators throughout the world level penalties in the billions. BNP Paribas, which is in negotiations with U.S. authorities for alleged sanction violations, at first reportedly faced a fine as high as $16 billion, but more recently settlement discussions have been in the range of just $10 billion. Regardless of the amount, the French foreign minister saying today that the dispute between U.S. courts and the bank could hurt trade treaty talks between the U.S. and the European Union. Meantime, here in the U.S., Bank of America also in talks with the Justice Department. It could pay $12 billion to settle its alleged handling of shoddy mortgages leading up to the financial crisis. The final tab would likely top the $13 billion record held by J.P. Morgan Chase. Talks for a new labor contract covering nearly 20,000 dock workers at West Coast ports underway. The negotiations are being watched closely since half of the cargo moving into and out of the U.S. goes through the West. In 2002, a 10-day lockdown cost the economy upwards of $1 billion a day by some estimates, and the White House had to order the ports reopened. The current 6-year contract expires at the end of this month. On-demand taxi and limo company Uber announced today it has raised $1.2 billion, which values the company at $17 billion. For those not familiar with Uber, the company makes a mobile app that allows you to call for a car, which then appears. Uber started only 4 years ago in San Francisco and has since expanded to 128 cities in 37 countries. And a robot is about to do what many humans have trouble doing, reading people's emotions. The Japanese telecom SoftBank unveiling the first emotional robot. It can analyze people's gestures, facial expressions, and voice tones. The 4-foot, 62-pound robot known as Pepper was developed to communicate with family members, perform domestic tasks, or care for the elderly. It is also expected to be used by businesses. The robot is scheduled to hit the market in February of next year and sell for about $2,000. Might scare away some of the family pets, too. The World Cup could be shaping up to be a FIFA fiasco. Just days before the 2014 World Cup begins in Brazil, stadiums aren't complete, and there are protests among both Brazilians and foreign attendees. What is going on? Joining us now is Mike Bako, sports managing editor of thedailynational.com. Mike was just here a few days ago talking about this, and we're glad to have you back on. Thank you so much. So is Brazil ready?
No. Plain and simple, they're not. They're doing a test run of the stadium in Sao Paulo, where they're going to have the opening games on Sunday. The stadium seats 65 to 70,000 people. They're only letting in half of that amount to test out the stadium.
So they're afraid of some structural issues in the stadium?
They're afraid of some structural issues. They're still fine-tuning some of the things.
Why? Did they not have enough notice that the World Cup was coming?
They certainly had enough notice, but just with everything that's been going on, just in terms of infrastructure, how long it's taking to build these stadiums. This one stadium in Sao Paulo had a few deaths and some construction issues, so they put that on hold. But as you mentioned, 7 years and the countless billions of dollars that went into these stadiums, they should be ready.
Well, and you mentioned billions of dollars. Brazil's economy, part of the BRICS countries, in shambles.
Yes.
And the Brazilians are not happy.
Not happy, protesting in the street. You would figure that for a soccer-crazed country as Brazil is, they would be joyous in the streets. But no, they're protesting.
That's what surprised me. When I first heard about the protests, I was like, but Brazil loves football, and now but this is really too much.
They love football, they love rooting for their team, but what they don't love is being pushed out of their homes, having money go for transportation systems that are not built, shoddily built. You mentioned the economy. The FIFA having the World Cup there is not going to help Brazil's economy in the long term. It'll help it in the short term with tourists coming in.
But then it leaves.
The stadiums remain.
Doesn't a large part of the ticket money go back to FIFA?
Ticket money goes to FIFA. TV money, which is 75% of the $4.5 billion that are raised from this, goes to FIFA. The money and the prestige that Brazil thinks that they're going to get from this gets lost, especially if they don't have a productive games. If something, God forbid, happens at one of these stadiums, that's what it's going to be remembered for.
We see some protests going on. How serious is the violence, and how might that impact the games?
The violence is real. Just recently now, the violence has turned against police officers as well. So they are trying to make a statement that they do not want these games. It's a bad omen for these 2014 World Cup games, and for 2016. We may be going through this all over again. You wonder if they're going to learn their lessons, and the Olympics in 2016 won't be as violent or as much controversy surrounding
There's
it.
Also a debate going on about ticket prices.
Ticket prices are high. As you mentioned, the Brazilian economy not doing too well. Even though the demand is high for those tickets, you're going to be getting an influx of visitors from the U.S. Second highest demand for tickets from the U.S. So the U.S. people are going to be going there, cheering on the U.S., spending their money. But again, those U.S. supporters are going to leave right afterwards. So the rank and file ticket buyer is going to be priced out. It's like that all around the country, though.
Let's ask you about sponsorship dollars. Coca-Cola, Anheuser-Busch, some of these big sponsors, are they starting to feel pressure and concern?
I think where they'll feel pressure and concern if the violence spills over into some demonstrations. The money that's being spent on advertising is already been spent. But what you need to take into consideration is, as you mentioned, Coca-Cola, some of these bigger brands, they're going to use this as a showcase to bring over people, have parties. How is that going to look if Coca-Cola is hosting a party where there's violence 2 blocks over, or violence coming to where they're doing their events?
And they went through this a little bit in Sochi with the Olympics. You know, if you're going to sponsor these events, there is going to be a political risk here.
Absolutely. In the U.S., it's a point of pride to be the official Olympic sponsor. But when you go to another country, when you go to Sochi, when you're in Brazil and there's poverty around, they don't want that money going towards advertising, towards parties. They want it going towards infrastructure, education, travel.
Right now, it's easy to beat up on Brazil, but what would make this a success for the country?
I think they don't have to look that much far into the past. Everyone was beating up on Sochi and Russia before the games. yellow water, hotel doors that weren't opening. Everything was pointing towards a disastrous Olympics. What happened? Everything went off without a hitch. The venues were fine. The hotels were fine. And we remember the Associated Games as not
generally a success.
As generally a success.
Okay, Mike Bako, thank you so much.
Thank
we'll
you.
have you back on and talk more about as the games unfold.
Thank you.
Ahead, a 33-foot Virgin Mary statue you have to go see, and the man behind it who is our favorite person of the day. You're watching Arisexchange.
Looking at mainstream news stations where only you have a very small minority of people of color being newscasters and actually having prominent roles in the media.
In a newsroom in the United States, maybe 10% of decision makers come from communities of diversity. That's not right.
Well, diversity is important because the more complete the news is, the more accurate a picture you're getting of the world, and the more you can form an accurate opinion of things.
The vision here is not just to tell the main stories of the day, but to tell the news that other organizations don't tell, and tell it in a way that people like me, people that look like me, that look like you, are interested in.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, it is not just a person, but his, some would say, tacky, downright frightening statue of the Virgin Mary that he put in front of his home. Neighbors in the Long Island ritzy community of Old Westbury are feuding with Abby Rosen over this 33-foot statue of the Virgin Mary. There it is. It depicts a naked, pregnant woman with the right half of her skin peeled away, which exposes her skull, muscles, and the fetus of baby Jesus in her room. Rosen put the statue right in front of his home for everyone to see. Village officials are planning to change the zoning laws now to limit statues to 25 feet. But Rosen is arguing the questionable work of religious art actually fits in to the neighborhood, and he does not want to change a thing. Rosen is also embroiled meantime in another suit. He is being sued by the New York Landmark Conservancy for wanting to take down a fragile Picasso curtain from New York's Four Seasons restaurant. So Picasso out, crazy, funky Virgin Mary in. And so Abby Rosen is our favorite person of the day. Next, life as a celebrity dog. We'll meet human and canine next. And it is Friday, so as Tito says, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Songhai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
In tonight's corner office, we all love our pets, especially us Americans. And with 40 million dogs in homes across America, pet care has become a multi-billion-dollar business. Jorge Bendersky is a celebrity dog groomer and has his own company called Planet Jorge. He is here with Tito to talk to us about grooming your dog and the business behind it. He is ridiculously cute, by the way. Nice tie.
Yeah, that's part of his line, his own line.
Tell me about Tito.
Well, you know, he's a 6-year-old retired champion Pomeranian, and he became a doggy fashion icon.
And how did that happen?
It's happened like every good business with a good marketing plan behind it.
He has his own website, I know.
He has his website, his Twitter account, @TitoThePom, TitoThePom.com.
Do you like smaller dogs or do you like the bigger dogs? Who do you like to groom?
On my heart, I'm a big dog guy, but living in New
don't
York.
Listen to that, Tito.
Yeah, living in New York, you need a carry-on dog.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. All right, talk to us a little bit about what a celebrity dog groomer is and how you got there.
Well, I moved to the States 22 years ago, couldn't speak one word in English. My options were, or I will deliver pizza or I do something with my hands.
Yep.
And I love dogs all my life. I work, it was my hobby. I turned it into a profession. And
how did you go about doing that? Because I always ask small business people this question because it is such a niche business, if you will. I grew up with Bouvier's, and I was fortunate enough that one of our Bouvier's was in a Diet Coke commercial. So I have a little bit of experience with dog groomers and dog handlers. But how did you get there?
Well, with a plan.
Yeah.
I always say you need to love what you do because that gets you through the bad times.
Mm-hmm.
But, you need to have a good plan of, how to work, find your niche. The pet industry is a $60 billion industry. I knew it was a place for me.
And you have met basically celebrities and connected with them. And how is that process? Like, who is harder, the celebrity parent of the dog or the dog?
Usually, the clients are the harder to please. And the celebrities are, our celebrities are great for your marketing, but, you have to chase them all over the country. So, getting on an helicopter to go and groom one dog in the Hamptons and coming back is fun, but, it took your whole day. So you need to charge accordingly.
Absolutely. What are the challenges you face in this business then? There's not a lot of competition, is there?
It is a lot of competition. It's like people don't realize how important grooming is on their relationship with their pets. Mama monkey grooms baby monkey. Grooming is one of the most important ways to show love and bonding with your animals.
Yeah, let me ask you a little bit about that. So for people who have dogs and maybe are not celebrities and cannot afford a lot, what are the things they should be doing to keep their pets as cute as Tito here?
Well, I wrote a book that is
we have your book here, by the way.
That is do-it-yourself dog grooming.
Sorry, Tito, I'm going to put the book in front of you for a second here.
So, it's a do-it-yourself dog grooming. And I explain all the tips of the importance and how to take care of your own dog at home and make it look like, like Tito.
Is he always so well behaved? Does he do anything? Just lie around?
Oh yeah, he knows. It's his job,
What about dressing them in clothes? I mean, should dogs be dressed up?
I don't think he minds. Look fun. He likes it because he likes the attention that they get. I don't like those I don't want Tito to look like a piñata walking around. It's like, so a little T-shirt is a show personality.
You have any good stories about working with celebrities and their animals?
Yeah, but working with animals more, like, I got called one day. They were like, we need you on this hotel to get the dog ready for a wedding. And I figured, okay, ring bearer. I get there and no, it was actually the dog wedding.
It was a dog wedding?
Yeah. She was getting married.
Dogs are the same species, or
they were the same species.
Mixed dog.
Yeah, I think they were interracial just for the colors, but they were the same species.
Who has a dog wedding, if I dare ask?
A lot of people in New York. They are like the Chihuahua groups are like.
Well, dogs are the new kids in New York. I mean, that's what they say.
They are, yes.
So you see that mostly in New York, and imagine California.
Yeah, and I make a joke. I say, a dog will ruin your carpet, but a kid will ruin your life. So sometimes I encourage people to get dogs.
Talk to me a little bit about, your business as far as, do you have a standalone shop? Are you on the road a lot? Do you work with the staff these days?
Right now, I do house calls, and I do have assistants that they go and take care of the dogs when I'm out of town promoting the book. So, and I do a lot of charity around the town, teaching. Now I'm focusing a lot on teaching and shelters and on the inner city here in the city.
You do a lot of work with the inner cities?
I do every year with the Melissa Mark Viverito, who is the speaker of the city council now. I've been doing in Spanish Harlem for years.
I imagine that's really important because especially in this city, so many people have dogs and they are part of your family.
They are, and a lot of people, low-income families, they don't realize that by brushing a dog, you save the dog life because it's the best way for early detection of most of the health issues. So, when you find like a rash, a scratch, a cut, very early on, you can take care of that at home. And sometimes it becomes like huge vet bills that then cannot afford. So,
okay. Jorge, thank you. And Tito, you didn't say much, Tito, but that's okay. Thank you for coming on. We'd like to welcome New York viewers to the Arise family. Starting today, we are in an additional 2.8 million homes on Time Warner Cable, that's Channel 92, and Verizon Fios Channel 481. Remember D-Day and the troops out there. Thank you. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Have a nice weekend.